the stories in the Bible and in these religious texts, do you believe that those were higher dimensional beings? Do you believe, because it's very hard a lot of times to show how everything's connected in that, yes, this is a matrix, yes, it's a simulation, yes, God is real, but I describe God as energy. God is love, God is everything. Love and light, but also the darkness. But we also have these different species and beings on earth, and all these stories were told, and all these things happen in the Holy Lands. Do you believe that higher dimensional beings created us and we're made in their image, but ultimately one person sits on top of them, or one entity?
As a rebel,
Yeah.
trying to learn Judaism, I couldn't get the answers from rabbis to things that are written in the Torah that I wanted to better understand. Like, who are the Nephilim? We read about these giants in the Torah. Why don't we have like a good explanations of their origins, of who they were, and also other names like Kruv and Seraphs and Ophanim. Like, you hear about like these angels that are described in the Torah, and one should wonder, like many of the things there, like, you know, when Moses sent his spies to check Canaan before the Hebrews went into it, the spies that he sent came back to him and told him, you can't believe what's going on there. There are giants. We look like crickets to them. Okay, who are these giants? Where are they? Why don't we talk about them anymore? Where are their remainings? You know, since I didn't get these answers, I started looking outside of the Bible, outside of the first 5 books, the Torah. Then you realize there are earlier books, like Sumerian stories, Hashomrim, Sumerian, you know, Sumerian scripts tell about these deities, aliens, giants coming from a different planet, which has a name that resembles Hebrew, Nibiru.
Okay.
And then they have like these names that describes many of the Hebrew words, like one of the so-called, the Sumerian tells about our creator, Anki. And when you read the Bible, for example, he says Anochi, but Anoki is, it has a resemblance to Anki. So one should ask if there's a connection between these two. So without going too deep into, you know, what I found out and what I believe in order to connect the dots and get a better perspective on what happened and what is happening, I would invite everyone to study the Zohar, Sumerian scripts, the Book of Enoch. And many of my Jewish friends, I consider myself as a Hebrew, because Judaism refers to one tribe, and I think we're 12 tribes. That's what the Bible says. And you know, they have their oral Bible, which they pass, and it was, for me, it's like a code that's passed from one generation to the other. But when you do these kinds of things, a lot of bugs into this code can start showing up. And you know, I had many Jewish friends asking me, study the Gemara, study the Talmud, Babylonian Talmud. And you know, Nimrod came from Babylon, building the Tower of Babylon. And I'm telling to my friends, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to touch it. But you know what? I cannot judge anything or make up my mind on things that I've never studied by myself. So I challenged a very nice rabbi who's very strong on decoding the Torah based on the use of psychedelics, Rabbi Harry Rosenberg. And I asked him, can you get me somebody that I can start, you know, studying Talmud with? He said, I'm going to send you to this genius guy. He's in Burbank. I was in LA. He's going to do a session with you in Talmud. You're going to love it. And I went there, and the guy chose, there's no I realized there is no circumstances in this, circumcision there is, circumstances in this universe. And the guy, I went to his house, crazy experience, like, he opens wearing Krusty the Clown pants with big beard, like a baseball hat, big fat joint in his mouth. looking at me, "Are you vaxxed?" Like, I didn't understand the question. Maybe I did, but I played it and I said, "No, I didn't take the vaccine." "Oh, you can smoke my joint, man!" And he started hugging me for, you know, he thought we were vibrating on the same energies, and you know, it was very, for me, it was this energy that I must explore. And he said, "I prepared us an amazing chapter today. We're gonna be studying about Lilith." I don't know if any of your audience follows the story about Lilith, but they say they tried, before Eve, they tried to create a woman. They called it Lilith, and the experiment went wrong.
Yeah.
She became a demon. He said, "Okay, I love stories. You know, I grew up as a kid loving sci-fi and fantasy and Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. This was, and playing Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know, I was very, you know, drawn into this geekish kind of existence as a kid, as a teenager, as a human being, airplanes, spacecrafts, aliens. And then I've never studied Aramaic. Like, Aramaic is an ancient, earlier language to Hebrew, but the letters were Hebrew letters, and the words start popping, and I freaked out. Because the words that popped out in the episode about Lilith was Akofia. For me, Kof in Hebrew is monkey. Hormin, for me, is hormone. Masar gen, in one word, but these are two words, Masar jin. It's basically transmitted a gene. Gen, genes, right. Same word. Chad ta'iya, single cell. And you basically see a genetically modified monkey getting genes and hormones and mixing cells. And that basically immediately connects to the Bible stories of the creation of Eve, putting someone to sleep, opening his rib cage, taking one rib, creating a feminine counterpart next to him. So this Eve experiment or creation story was successful, but in the Talmud you read about an earlier experiment that wasn't successful, and it's all reading science. It's all reading technologies that, you know, mankind was not familiar with. And only nowadays we can explain this by, you know, modern science, modern medicine, modern technologies on how you can clone things. Like, you know, Dolly was the beginning. But now, who knows what you're doing with these kinds of technologies that already been transcribed in the Talmud thousands of years ago, telling us about God made us in His form.
Right.
Okay, God has, like, Creator has no form, if you ask me. So if it's written in His form and we have this form, and you study about the Anunnakis and you realize these giants look like, we look like them, but they're bigger than us, then one should wonder, what does it really mean? So, you know, everybody would explain it based on his own journey, his own studies, in his own explorations, and his own logic.
Right.
I know it was a long answer, but you know, this is the path that I had to go through in order to connect the dots.